Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Darlene Lyons, and I'll be your host for this session. We're going to get started right on time, and before we get started, we wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items and let you know that the recording of this session and the slides for Nicole's presentation today will be available on learninglibrary.com later this afternoon. Secondly, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question and answer box in the top screen. That's in your toolbox, and Nicole will answer them at the end of the presentation. And now I will introduce Nicole. As an industry speaker and consultant, Nicole Nicolay, also known as @NicNic, has equipped real estate professionals with innovative marketing techniques and best practices for generating business through social media and blogging. She started her blog, mytechopinion.com, in 2006, which is regarded as one of the leading technology blogs in the real estate industry. And in fact, it was an Inman News finalist for Most Innovative Blog. Nicole has also been recognized as one of the top 5 social media masters and one of the 50 most influential people in real estate. Most recently, she launched her second successful startup, Agent Evolution, which is a new media training and WordPress web design company for real estate professionals. And Realtor University is delighted to have you today. Welcome, Nicole.
Oh, thank you so much, Darlene. I'm very excited to be here, and I want to say welcome to the webinar. And now I will say the original title for this webinar, I think, had the word killer in it, killer presentation. And I was thinking that was a little tiny bit dangerous. So I decided that we would go with creating a listing presentation that rocks. And clearly that's definitely more my style. And we're going to take it away right now. So I hope everybody's ready to rock their listing presentation. As Darlene mentioned, I am Nicole Nicolay, but of course, my friends call me NicNic, and I invite you to do the same. And without further ado, I think it's time that we get this started. And so I have a little sound bite to wake us all up here. All right, so I hope that wakes you up. I'm on the West Coast. It's 8 a.m. for me, and I've got my triple mocha in hand. And so, you know, it's time to rock. It's time to rock our listing presentation. And in order to rock it effectively, we need to rock the entire process, the pre-listing package, the listing presentation, and the post-listing package. So I'm excited today to really step you through the components of each of these. And I'll even provide some technology tips that are necessary for executing these steps. But first, we need to get into the mindset. What do I mean by that? Well, the mindset of a professional realtor that's ready to share their knowledge, their expertise, and to win a new client with, of course, the 5 C's. And these 5 C's are just some items that I want you to really keep in mind when you're creating, throughout the listing process actually, but when you're creating your listing package, when you're going in to meet with a potential client, and throughout the process, as I've mentioned. The very first C is, of course, confidence. You have got to be confident in your abilities, in your skill set, and your services, and this needs to carry out throughout the listing process. And I have to say, one of the key confidence builders tends to be the fact that you are setting yourself up for additional appointments, that you're not just relying, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, but that you have some other appointments set up in the pipeline. So prospecting is a key component of building your confidence and making sure that you've got other appointments set. So you can go in there with that mindset of that you want your 6% commission, that you're ready to rock the market knowledge that you bring to the table and really assess the needs and the readiness of your client. All right, so confidence. Confidence is definitely key. Our next C, I have to share a really quick quote with you. Smart agents have a reason for everything they say and do. And I know that's you guys that are listening out there right now. You're my smart agents. And a friend of mine, Kathy Spencer, who's a trainer, she always says this to her agents. And I think it's really important because the more prepared you are for that presentation, the better off you are really going to do along the way. And that also means being prepared for those objections. So making sure that you're really prepared in advance will help you assess that. All right, the second C is commitment. You're going to rock commitment. It's your job, obviously, to sell that home, and that commitment that you're making to the client needs to be expressed clearly. That's your job. But going hand in hand with commitment also is the third C, which is cooperation. And that really means, yes, it's your job to sell the home, to handle the proper pricing, etc. But it's also important to work together with the sellers and really rely heavily on great communication so that you can cooperate and meet that goal. Also makes for a smooth transaction. All right, our fourth C are the cues. And this is really the hints that you're going to get from the seller, and it really is important that you get in listening mode right from the start, right from the setting the appointment, so that you can clearly identify seller motivations, as well as throughout the process and during the listing presentation. There may be times where you need to check for understanding and clarify certain things. And if you're not prepared and you're not listening, then you may not pick up on those important cues. And remember that it's important. It is about you sharing your expertise, but it's a lot, and it's mostly about the seller, right? And then our final C, probably one of the most important, is closing. And that's being in the mindset to ask for it, to ask for that listing, and knowing that even if they reply with, I'm going to think about it overnight, or they even give you that no, or they plan to interview other agents, don't give up. There's always an opportunity to reclose. It's going to come up along the way. So just remember to keep that in mind. And those are the 5 C's to really get in the mindset of delivering a winning listing presentation. All right. Well, it's time to get rocking here with our listing presentation. And of course, a good listing process always begins with a plan, and having a plan that also includes a task list. So from that moment that you set the appointment, you need to have certain tasks organized and ready so that you can kickstart the process for success. Some of those tasks may include fact-finding about the home, so taking a look at sales history and tax documents, doing a drive-by photo shoot, taking a photo of the home that you can later use in your presentation, doing a confirmation phone call. And I will say 2 and 3, these different tasks could actually be a pre-listing appointment. I know some agents prefer, rather than to send a pre-listing package, they'll actually do a pre-listing appointment. And so that brings up a point that I would like to make, and that is, although I'll be going over these components today, I want it to be clear that you really need to bring your own flavor, your own personality, your own expertise to these different components and do what's right for you. These are components, these are suggestions, and you want to be able to take them and run with them. And so your task list may look quite different than mine, but it is important to start with that prior to pre-listing. So now it's important let's take a look at those pre-listing package components. And that is going to include an introduction to you and your expertise, a questionnaire, a plan of action, and peace of mind. So let's take a look at these individual items. And one of the things I will say about a pre-listing package that I think is crucial is it can really help to establish trust prior to the listing appointment. It helps you learn about the seller. It can better prepare the seller for your meeting and even educate on the selling process. The introduction. Now, as I mentioned, it is all about the seller, but it is important that you express who you are, share your expertise, provide a professional bio to those sellers. And this can be in the form of a letter or a professional snapshot or resume. It could even be in the form of a video, say 30 seconds or a minute-long video that highlights your niche expertise and your professionalism. And this will really give a feel for who you are as a realtor and a person. It helps us relate to you, or the seller relate to you. The one thing I will say is if you go to the time and effort of creating a video such as this, whether you do it on your own, do it yourself, or you have a professional company, which I would suggest for this type of a video handle for you, you could reuse this video in many other areas besides just in the listing process. Be a great item in addition to your blog or website in your About section. Second thing that you might want to consider using is a questionnaire. And I find this extremely helpful to assess seller readiness, to identify areas of concern, such as safety or pricing and commission. And when you identify those areas of concern, it helps to also identify what objections you may be faced with in the listing presentation. And then also, another component of the questionnaire should be the home story. And that's really identifying the unique features of the home and letting that seller express what's special about their home. They know it best. They've been living there, so they can really give you a feel for the components or features of that home. And I will say, including this as a part of the pre-listing package is really important. You really want to stress that you'd like to get this back prior to the listing appointment. And one way that you can usually make that happen is by using a tool such as SurveyMonkey or Zoomerang. Those are online survey tools. And if you send the package over via email and have them click the link to, say, SurveyMonkey and fill that out, you'll get that information back right away. All right, we've got to have a plan of action, of course. And this really helps to outline what your goal and objectives and stages throughout the home selling process, the services that you provide. But I do want to be clear, when you provide a little plan of action within the pre-listing presentation, don't make it a 20-page lengthy booklet. Instead, just go forth and outline some basic stages, an overview, if you will, of what you're going to provide. You're going to give a taste, basically, of your listing presentation, of the things that are going to be included in there. So make it brief, but also get to the point. And last but not least, peace of mind. And these are really informative or support items and documents that help to educate the sellers, whether it be a quick overview of the selling process, of proper pricing, of buyer profile, so for example, buyers in your area, where are buyers coming from, and then also it's very likely that your potential clients are interviewing a variety of different agents, so perhaps think about providing them with a checklist for comparison, so comparison shopping, so they know what to expect in a highly professional real estate agent. Rocket. Okay, so these are kind of my wows. When you see the rocket hand come up, you know that this is an important key element to really wow your clients. And that's in the delivery of the pre-listing package. You know, back in the day, we would use perhaps a courier or a FedEx to send different items over to the sellers, or even drive by and hand it off. But you know, we are now in a digital age, as I'm sure you know, and going green is very important to a lot of people out there, including me. And so you can send your pre-listing package very easily via email. And again, that also makes for the return of the questionnaire much easier on the seller's part. And you want to be very equipped when you go into that listing appointment. So speaking of listing, let's get to it. The main chunk of our presentation today is taking a look at these different components. The listing presentation. And of course, we're going to get to execution and delivering it. There are a variety of different ways that you can deliver that listing presentation. Obviously, you're going to be doing it in person, and you may be conversing with the seller. You may also be using some technical items like a laptop or perhaps an iPad, or maybe some print items or even a flip book. And when you think of adding these visual aids into delivering your presentation, just remember that they should enhance or supplement your presentation, but you shouldn't always rely on them. So let's take a look at the major components of a listing presentation. We have the walkthrough, the questionnaire that we sent and we're now going to address, your goal, strategic selling plan, a marketing plan, the numbers, of course, and seller preparation. And I think I should mention here too that these different components or modules can be delivered at different times. It doesn't have to be exactly in this flow. This may be my suggestion, but you may find that it works better to deliver your marketing plan right up front and hold off on the strategic selling plan. So just remember to, again, bring in your own personality and flavor to this. You'll also notice that I didn't add in closing as a component here, and that's because closing can really happen at different times throughout the process. And I'm going to give you two examples when we take it away here with our listing presentation components, but just be aware and be ready to ask for it. Now, prior to arriving at your seller's home, one thing that you really need to do is prep. Prep yourself, practice, practice, practice. If you're adding new components into your listing presentation, you may want to think about creating a script and repeating it, because if you repeat a script over and over and over, it will eventually become part of your natural language and more conversational than, say, reading off a cue card. And I will say, if you address all of the possible objections that you might face throughout the process, and you've sat down and thought about each of those individual cases and come up with some verbiage or a script for each one of those for what would happen, you'll be ready to assess and to deal with any scenario that really comes your way. And again, if you know your presentation well enough, you can be a better listener to the potential client and really recognize those cues along the way. So when you arrive at your seller's home, you're going to want to start with your meet and greet and a walkthrough if you have not already had a chance to tour the home. And this really provides a great time to learn the story behind the home, to identify features, to give that seller a chance to really share what they have taken pride in, the flowers at the front of the home or specific wall colors, different things like that in design and decor. And it also really provides a nice chance for you to really connect with that homeowner and relate to them before you sit down and get to the nitty-gritty. But once you do sit down, it's important to address those concerns that may have come up in the questionnaire head-on. So as you can see, we've got a rating scale over here on what are your concerns. So they might have selected 4 or 5, very concerned over commission, for example, or pricing. And so you're going to want to acknowledge those different concerns and make sure you can address them then, or let that seller know that you'll be addressing it as you move along throughout the process of telling them about what you do for them. And again, the nice thing about knowing about these different concerns prior is you'll be ready to address any possible objections. Then you need to express that commitment, the goal of why you're here. Why are you here, of course? To sell their house. And of course, you want to do that at the highest possible price in the shortest amount of time with the most favorable terms. And you're going to do this with a strategic plan. So you want to outline, have a plan ready. Now your plan could be 4 steps. Your plan could be 8 steps. And you're really going to want to make sure that whatever it is, that you own it, that you're confident about what you're about to deliver, you know the services that you provide, and you know the steps clearly so you can outline the process to the homeowner. And at the same time, you may also want to include your marketing plan. This can be done alongside what you're doing strategically, or you can present this separately as a different module. But the objective here is to really show the seller how you can maximize exposure for their home. And let's take a look at some of the specific things that you could be doing and sharing in your marketing plan. Now you may have a marketing calendar or a marketing calendar example of what you would be doing throughout the process, or you could just be itemizing and showing what you do and what that really means to the seller, because they're definitely going to be interested in how you're going to gain that exposure for their home. Obviously, we've got the basics of MLS optimization, and I do say basics, but the optimization of an MLS entry is really important because you can maximize the photos and the details there as well. We've got reverse prospecting, listing syndication, listing flyer, property profile, high-impact open house, single property website. These are tend to be the more traditional but very important pieces in your marketing plan. You may also have some newer ideas to share as well. So, for example, virtual tour, what you do on your agent website or perhaps blog. Perhaps you're going to blog about this featured listing. You may be using social media such as Facebook or Twitter. Your company may have a mobile app. And then, of course, you might have things like a newsletter, showing program, and, of course, the tried and true word of mouth. Whatever your marketing plan is, you will want to possibly show some examples of what you do. So how that listing of theirs is going to show up on your blog or website. If you do a virtual tour, letting them know that you have your own YouTube channel, that you're posting all these homes there, and then you then share those out to different channels online, and that you even perhaps use Twitter, for example, when you're doing an open house to describe the neighborhood or area. These are just a couple of examples. You know, obviously you're going to want to customize and have some things available there too. You may have print items that you want to share to show how lovely your listing profile is. It really depends, again, on your flavor. Oh my goodness, Rocket, the closing. Yes, I included this right here because after you share all these wonderful ways that you're going to sell their home and share off their marketing, you may want to think about using some pre-closing language here. This is a great point because you're going to be talking about how you're going to get all this exposure for their home. And for example, if you bring up the fact that you have a high-profile open house that you would like to schedule perhaps, you know, this weekend or the next weekend, and you turn to the seller and say, you know, would you be ready to schedule that open house this weekend or next weekend? And use some of that pre-listing language or pre-closing language so that you can get them in the mindset that you are already the agent for them. Now, of course, that closing attempt may or may not work. And, of course, they may want to get to the meat, which is giving them what they've been waiting for, the numbers, of course. But first, I think it's important to explain the benefits of proper pricing, how it can attract higher offers and actually make for a faster sale, and also so they get an idea of where you're coming from when, of course, you hand over the CMA, which they'll be waiting with bated breath to have access to those active pending and solds in the last 90 days. And I've worked with agents that have done some different things when it comes to their CMA. Some agents like to include as much information about the properties around that particular neighborhood, for example, up to 30 properties like this one here. I've worked with other agents that kind of pick and choose the different properties that they want to show and make it more of a competitive CMA. So it's really, again, it's up to you and what you decide, but the most important thing is that you've got to have that summary report, you've got to have access to other properties so they know where you're coming from, and of course present that net sheet. And again, with the net sheet, I will say, some agents choose to have one net sheet ready to go and have already decided on the price point and have stuck to it. But then there are other agents that I've talked to, very seasoned agents, that sometimes will provide a range. So they're not really locked in to a particular price, and will often bring 3 net sheets. A local agent here, she always brings three net sheets and then kind of pulls the one out after reading the cues and the signs and what she thinks after being able to walk through the home and have a better idea of really the features there. So those are some important things you want to include in the numbers, but also, you know, it is 2010, and you know that they've been there to Zillow and some of the other valuation sites on the web. Sellers are pretty savvy, and they'll go here, they'll check out what they think their home is worth, and this provides actually a great opportunity to show off your own expertise and knowledge of the local market area. You know, you can have something like this printed out or even bring it up. If you have an iPad or a laptop there, you could always run it really quickly. and say, let's go over to the computer and check this out. The reason that it's important to also show and address these different valuation sites online is because they are really providing that AVM or automated valuation model, which is missing clearly your realtor knowledge and expertise of the market area. And you have the best understanding of the neighborhoods, the builders, et cetera, and how that really affects the price of their particular home. Now, one other tool that I will mention really quickly, being that you are NAR members, is a new free tool called RPR, or Realtors Property Resource. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because it's offering free, it's a free tool, which is good, that offers real-time property information using listing and sales data. It's probably about a year out till full-blown usage, but it's being rolled out here and there. And the reason I think it's such an important piece is because it offers an RVM, which is a realtor valuation model, which lets the agent actually add comments, modify the value based on their own expertise, which is obviously what the consumer-facing AVMs are missing. So I just thought I would bring that up and be on the lookout for RPR. So once you've presented those numbers, again, it's time to ask for it. And even if they mention to you, well, this was very informative, we really enjoyed meeting you, but we'd like to think about it and think about it overnight. That's another opportunity to reclose by asking that seller, well, is there anything I can provide you with to help you make your decision? Is there anything that wasn't clear that I could clarify? And provide some additional information. They may even just say, well, we've got to call the other, we loved you so much, but we've got to call the other agents back that we were going to interview and cancel. And of course, you could always say, well, I'll do that for you. So just remember that if you are prepped enough, you can roll with any scenario and really be able to understand whatever objections come your way. Now, once they've signed that listing agreement, you may want to pull out some ahas or some really wow services that you provide, and also get ready to really prepare the seller for what's to come. Now, as they get ready to prepare for an open house or some of those things that are going to come their way, they may feel overwhelmed by preparing their home for this, and you can kind of give them that extra peace of mind that you offer professional home staging consultation, or perhaps a complimentary house cleaning, or a gardener, or even seller's coverage on the home warranty. Whatever it is that's special to you that you want to address, that would be a good time to do so. And again, we do want to prep that seller, but I like to prep the seller through the post-closing or post-listing package. So let's take a look at what that can include. And your post-listing package could be something that you have ready on the spot there once they sign that listing agreement, but it also might be better suited for perhaps a couple days later once they've agreed on the terms. So what can that post-listing package, or what should it include? Let's take a look at the components here. A thank you, a second walkthrough, seller checklists, an open house kit, a marketing calendar, and a vendor list. And some of these items, I will say again, may be included perhaps in your listing presentation. And these are, again, just important items that need to be included. So let's take a look at these different components. Of course, the first one is pretty self-explanatory. Just, a handwritten note is still, even in this digital age, can really wow someone that you took the time to write a quick note and send it along with that post-closing package. So let's take a look. So we want to do a second walkthrough. If you haven't had a chance to really survey the property and identify possible repairs and improvements, that first walkthrough may be more about the seller and getting to know the home story and getting to know the seller and relating to them, where you may want to go through a second walkthrough in order to really take a look at what needs to be ready prior to that open house. And once you get an idea, you can put together a checklist of all the things that need to be done prior to that first open house for the seller. So of course, we need to have some seller checklists. Obviously, the to-dos to prep the home for these open houses is important, but it's also important to have a checklist for prior to each showing. So all the items or tasks that should be done in the interior or the exterior, so there hopefully won't be any surprises during those showings. An open house kit can also really wow your client. And this, of course, can include things like signs for the pets, watching out for the pets, or removing shoes, the little booties to keep the carpet clean. But it can also include some really fun items, like trading cards. You might have little cards made up to really give kind of like the stats, the home stats, a little home picture, or perhaps a property profile or listing flyers. Having some of these items and dropping them off to the seller can help the seller actually help you in the process of marketing their home. So, you know, if the seller has a couple of those home trading cards in their pocket or purse and she's out at the grocery store or getting her hair done and has that opportunity to share something and drive that meeting or word of mouth back to marketing for this listing. It's just a bonus. All right. Now, the marketing calendar, I did bring this up in the listing presentation. I would suggest having a sample calendar, sample marketing calendar in your listing presentation. Kind of helps identify those different marketing activities that will be done, an overview or a glance. But then you also might want to create a custom marketing calendar for that seller. So day 1 is the listing contract. Day 2, you've got the handiwork. Day 3, inspections. Day 4, the stagers and the cleaners, et cetera, so that they really have an idea of what's to come and so that they can plan accordingly. And again, so you have that communication back and forth and there are no surprises. And then last but not least, a vendor list. So obviously you have your own preferred vendors when it comes to staging or landscaping or whatever it may be. So put together a list with contact information with your preferred vendors, and that way also the seller can feel free to contact those people or at least be aware of who's coming and who's going to be by there so they know what to expect along the way. All right, so I've taken you through the components of the pre-listing, the listing, and the post-listing. Now we're going to take a little turn and focus on execution. How do you put all these elements together? What kind of tools you might be using, and application software. And so we're going to rock the technology tools now for execution. These are the things that could help with and impress sellers with their delivery. Again, visual aids are good, but we don't want to rely on them. We want to use them as enhancements. And then, of course, you know, the do-it-yourselfer tools, the things that you need in order to create the media that may be included in your presentation. For example, any photos or perhaps a video, an intro video. So we're going to go through these different tech tools now. And I see that some of you have been typing in your questions into the question pane. So I do want to just remind those of you that are listening that if you have questions about these tools or anything else, make sure you put them in the question pane. I'm going to leave plenty of time at the end to address the different questions that you've left here. So with that, let's rock some of these tech tips. The first is having really a good camera. I know a lot of people will hire sometimes a professional photographer or even a videographer, but that's not always in our budget, and you can do some of these things on your own, especially when it comes to the drive-by photo shoot. But it does help to have the right tools. So my choice for a nice camera, if you're thinking about getting a little more serious with your photo taking, is the Canon Rebel. And of course, we want to get, this allows you to actually purchase a variety of different lenses, including a wide-angle lens. But if you want to kind of just get your feet wet with a good camera, I would just go with the Sony CyberShot. You can stick it in your pocket or your purse, and it's a very mobile, great camera to use. One tip when you're taking that drive-by photo shoot, if you stop and you actually carry a child stool, a little toddler stool in your car, just a plastic one that you pick up at Target. I have a friend who's a phenomenal agent and broker, but also a great photographer, and she told me recently, my friend Kimberly Dotseth, said that she takes a child stool around with her and she stands on that when she takes the listing photo or even the drive-by shot. It just provides a nicer perspective of the home. When it comes to a video camera, say for using for a video tour or interviews, testimonials, or even that introduction bio, you may want to consider, if you haven't already, a flip camera. This is a very easy to use and affordable video camera. It's got that red button right there, start and stop, pretty easy, and then you use your USB to plug it right into your computer, and you can very easily modify what you've and edit what you've shot because it has built-in software. So it's pretty much a no-brainer and very easy to use. But if you are thinking about getting serious and you really want to have quality video, you want to be able to have some quality, bring in some microphones, like a wireless mic, and really step up your production level, then I would consider getting a high-res camera such as the Canon Vixia HF20. This is my choice for really high-quality cameras, and it's super small, and actually it's probably smaller than your screen right there, and very easy to use as well. Now, one of my favorite ways to actually record little video introductions and even work with clients via Skype is with a webcam. My webcam that I use is the Logitech HD Pro webcam. It's about $100. It's got 1080p, so it's really clear. I always have to have my makeup on for that one. And then, of course, we've got the Microsoft LiveCam Cinema webcam. That's another favorite that people use out there. All right, let's talk presentation. Putting your thoughts and organizing your components of your listing presentation are really important. If you are a PC user like me, then you're going to be using PowerPoint, possibly. If you're using a Mac, you have, of course, Keynote. And then another really fun way to organize some visual aids is with Prezi. And Prezi is a web-based application for presentations. The reason I like it is because it's very interactive. It's almost like a map of your presentation, and you're bringing different parts of it to life as you click on those different features of your presentation. It's just a very fun way, and again, a really easy way to not get wrapped up in creating, a lot of slides. I think one thing that happens when we start using these types of tools is we have a tendency to rely on the slides rather than the delivery of the information and our own expertise. So again, just keep it simple, keep the slides on a minimum, and make sure that you're also, not focused on filling those slides with a lot of words and verbiage, and focus more on imagery, and then supplement that, of course, with your own expertise. So these are my favorite presentation programs. And to supplement your presentation, as I mentioned earlier with the questionnaire, you may want to use a tool like SurveyMonkey.com or even Zoomerang, which are great online tools for sending those questionnaires out and getting the responses very quickly. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this tool, Animoto, but it's definitely my most favorite application for creating visually stunning animated slideshows with photos, even little video snippets that are set to music. And it's extremely affordable. It makes you look like a pro, even if you're doing very little. I mean, you seriously just go here, you upload a couple of items, and it does all the animations for you. It really takes care of the entire process of creating something special. And it's perfect for creating an introduction bio. It's really phenomenal, even if you have a chance to have that pre-listing appointment and you get to snap a couple photos of the home, and you could run right back, and seriously, in about a couple minutes, you could have a very high-quality, professional-looking home tour created in just moments. And the one thing I also like about it is this is very affordable. For a 90-second animated slideshow, it's $2. And if you end up loving this as much as I do, you just pay for a year subscription, which is about $250, and they have a business one specifically. So it's just a great way to really showcase a home or even you and your expertise. And that's Animoto.com, or AKA Marketing Like a Rockstar. Okay, So we all know that the iPad is out. It's hot. It's definitely one of those tools that you're kind of probably thinking, is this just a toy, or am I actually going to use and apply this in my business? And I have to say, for real estate, there are a number of different ways that you can use the iPad to your advantage when it comes to the listing process, when it comes to various other aspects of, I'll show you in a minute, to signing contracts, to even keeping busy kids quiet in the car, or even using while you're working with buyers. So there are a number of different specific real estate apps that are great for the iPad, but when it comes to your listing presentation that you may have created, for example, on Keynote, or you may have used PowerPoint, you can actually bring that presentation on over into your iPad and use that instead of lugging around a big laptop. There is a specific Keynote app for Mac users, which is great. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a PC